Hey everyone, John from Nintendo Life here, and today it is the 10th of March, which in the UK we would call it 10 Mar Day, but in America you would call it Mar 10, which looks a bit like Mario, hence why it's called Mario Day. And I'm not celebrating Mario Day alone, I am joined by the stupendous and beautiful Xeon.
Oh man, come on!
And I'm also joined by the miraculous and stunning Alex.
It's a me, Alex O.
Wahoo! And Toad's here too?
So to celebrate Mario Day, Nintendo is discounting their games, which they very, very rarely do. So on the eShop, right now, you can get Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario Tennis Aces, Super Mario Maker 2, Super Mario Party, and Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games for 35% off. How generous.
35% because 35th anniversary was last year.
Oh no. Well, at least we know Mario Tennis Aces is a great deal because you've put in way too many, not too many hours, but a good chunk of your life into that game, John.
Yep, 100 hours, baby. And, oh yeah, Mario 35, I got to star level, which is when you beat level 99.
Woo!
Although, I thought that unlocked Luigi. Apparently it doesn't. So to get Luigi, you have to play every level in the game. And 7-3 and 7-4 are still missing from my roster. So even though I've played the game long enough to clear the level hierarchy, I still can't play as Luigi.
That's no good.
No, gotta play more, I guess. I've got 21 days to do so. We've actually had a bit of a ruckus against Mario lately, with a few videos talking about the March 31st and all the games going, and it just turns out that the Netflix show is also going soon, the Mario Brothers 3 show. But that's probably unrelated. But this is going to be a chat of positivity about our memories with Mario and our affinity to him. So, let's start off with quite a simple question. Alex, what was your very first Mario game?
My very first Mario game, oh lordy, well, there are two potential answers to this. Do you want the first Mario game I ever owned, or the first Mario game I ever played?
I would like to hear both sides of the coin.
Wowzers trousers. Okay, we'll go with the first one I ever played. The first one I ever played was either, and I really can't be sure which way round it was either Super Mario World or Super Mario All-Stars. I'm leaning more towards Super Mario World, just because when I was very young, the menus confused me in Super Mario All-Stars, and quite often I didn't quite know how to start a game. I'd get to the game selection screen, and you press start to play the game. But obviously, my brain, I was like, no, press the A button, so I'd whack that A button, and I'm fairly certain nothing happened. I might be misremembering that, but even so. So my first game was Super Mario World that I played, but the first one that I actually owned, that was Super Mario 64. I was a little bit late to the Mario game, I'm afraid, because I had a Master System, and there was no Mario game on the Master System, unless you count Sonic the Hedgehog 8-bit as a Mario game, which I do.
The Mario All-Stars menu was too much of a challenge for wee little Alex when he was a child.
Yes, it was, which I'm happy to say now that I think I've got the hang of it, so we should be okay now.
Can still be tough sometimes. What about you, Xeon? What was your first Mario game?
My first was, so my grandpa, he had a Nintendo for the family, and so my first one was just Super Mario Bros. That was what we played on, and my grandpa used to pull this trick on, like, me and the family. I might have told you guys about this before, or even just, our community, but he used to tell, like, all of us that if we jumped in a hole, we would get an extra life. And, the first few times we would fall for it. And that's such like a grandpa or a dad, like, prank to pull. And, but yeah, so that's like one of my first memories with it, is just being swindled by my grandpa into letting him get ahead of us in game. And so I guess, yes, original Super Mario Bros. Cut and dry is my first.
So I wasn't a Nintendo kid until my early teens, but I did have a Game Boy. So as a kid, I had a Dreamcast and then a PS2, and then in the lead up to the Wii, I'd get a 64, because I was anticipating Twilight Princess. But I'd get that for Ocarina of Time, and that was the only game I ever got for that system, up until years later. So I was devoid of any console Marios until the Wii came along. But my very first console was a Game Boy, which I had with Pokemon Red and Mario Land 1. And in hindsight, I still like Mario Land 1 a lot, but I can see its flaws. Like when you fall off a platform, you kind of plummet if you don't do like a little hop first, and it feels a bit weird platforming wise. But I still like certain attributes of it. But yeah, that was I think it was my first platformer ever. Which, I think that's probably true for a lot of people. Mario saved the industry and kind of introduced us. He didn't introduce the concept of platformers, but I think he introduced it to the masses. And it's just such a simple concept of running and jumping. It's something everyone understands, and you can adapt it to just about anything. And his influence, it's just been so grand over the years. In relation to all of you guys, was Mario one of your very first games?
I suppose it was probably... I started with Sonic, actually, again on the Master System. But having said that, there was a SNES at my grandmother's, and that SNES I was about to say inherited. I got it long before she passed away. But that was the first Nintendo console that I played. And I absolutely loved it. And I loved the fact that I had 5 Mario games. Well, 4 Mario games and the Lost Levels, which was just child torture. And it was wonderful to have all those Mario games, and yeah, you're damn right. There was so many secrets in like Mario World, for example, and Super Mario 3 had the Super Mario Bros. 3 had like the really tight level design, and you had Super Mario Bros. 2, which was completely different, and you could play as Peach and float, and that made my life a lot easier when I was a child. And you had things, and the original Super Mario Bros., which was pretty damn good. And as I said, the Lost Levels was also present.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting too is in the UK and a lot of Europe at large, Nintendo's home consoles weren't really that prominent. Sega had a much higher market share here. I didn't actually know anyone with an N64 growing up. I had friends with a PlayStation, I had a Dreamcast myself, one of my friends even had a Saturn, but no one had a 64. And so I was kind of blind.
You knew someone who had a Sega Saturn, but not an N64.
Yeah, I mean, Sega was a big thing here.
John also grew up with a Dreamcast, so this is like, wow, it's
just some alternate universe, yeah.
Yeah.
But like Nintendo's handhelds were always like the big thing. People had Game Gears, but they weren't necessarily as popular. And so I went on to the Game Boy Advance, where I'd experienced the Mario Advance series, and that's how I kind of got familiar with a lot of the core Mario games. I think one of the first ones I played was Super Mario Bros. 2, which I think was Mario Advance 1. They had weird naming strategies for this.
Just what I needed!
Lucky!
Nobody was ever crying out for Super Mario Bros. 2 to have voice acting.
This is as far as you go!
I went back to that game like last summer sometime. We went on a little camping trip, and it was just so strange to hear Charles Martinet's voice coming out of my Game Boy Advance's tiny speaker.
Do you know what's cool about that too? Is every game in that series came with a bonus of Mario Bros, the arcade game. And for a while, I thought that was just them giving you like a neat little extra. But then I realized that if you have friends who have if you own Mario Advance 1 and your friend owns Mario Advance 3, you can play multiplayer together by having these completely different games, but they both have Mario Bros in there. So I think that's the reason they included it in every iteration of Mario.
The only downside is that the multiplayer was the original Mario Bros arcade game, which even during the GBA's lifetime hadn't aged tremendously well. It was a laugh though. It was certainly something to play on the bus.
Yeah, did either of you guys, I didn't know that those were compatible, so did either of you guys ever actually have any school, bus time, playtime with that game between friends at all?
Oh yeah, that and Bomberman, the Game Boy Advance one. I can't remember which one that was now, but yeah, that and Bomberman, that was just like the bus games.
I didn't myself, but I guess I've always looked back at Game Boy Advance and thought this didn't really have a Mario game. We had Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, but I guess we had Mario Pinball and Mario vs. Donkey Kong, so there's definitely Mario games on there, but an original platformer, it didn't. But it did introduce generations who didn't grow up with the franchise, like me, to these classic games, and so I can't look back on it with resent, because that was a great thing for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Game Boy Advance really didn't have, its own Mario, like you said, but it is important for the fact that it was just able to introduce you. Because I was trying to think about what my favorite Mario games were from over the generations, and Mario Superstar Saga is probably my favorite from the Game Boy Advance. As I think I played the majority of the past Mario games on Super Nintendo or I guess that would have been my only option really at that point. And or Animal Crossing, because I played a lot of GameCube games through NES games through Animal Crossing. And Mario Superstar Saga was so good. I don't have the craziest memories of it now, unfortunately. But yeah, it's interesting to look back at the GBA and be like, wow, it had so many Marios, but not that many were unique to the platform.
When I got my Wii, I went on the Virtual Console, and that was my portal to everything that I'd missed. So I think I downloaded first The Legend of Zelda, Mario 64, and Super Mario Brothers, and that was around when I first got my Wii. And I remember playing Mario 1, and I went in kind of expecting it to feel like old and dated, but it doesn't. Like, I hear people nowadays say this game hasn't aged well. I disagree. I think it is so rooted in its limitations that it's so easy to understand. You can run through that game with your eyes closed, and you'll know exactly what you're doing because it's muscle memory. I played that to death. I had such a good time with Mario 1, even though I played it like 20 years after it came out.
Yeah, it's not really like a game that, like I went back and played the original Legend of Zelda last year using this hand-drawn strategy guide that Philip Summers made up, and we did a whole video on it. And but that game sort of feels like a game that if you didn't have the manual, or if you didn't have a friend that knew the way through the Lost Woods or something of that nature, you're going to be stuck. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The original Mario, you don't need instructions. You just a little bit of trial and error, and you can make your way through it. And I always try to I always hold down the run button and just sprint, and usually I die pretty quick. but I always have a lot of fun playing it, and that's interesting to look back and see how well that game has survived the times.
I have fun until I get to the Hammer Bros level.
Oh yeah, 8-3 is rough.
I can't be dealing with Hammer Bros.
Yeah, right at the end of 8-4, there's like a Hammer Bro right before Bowser, and Bowser's not even that tough. It's getting past that Hammer Bro, like just jumping over him. That's the bit I struggle with. Did anyone have a question on their mind?
John, do your best Wario impression.
This doesn't knock a Shy Guy, really.
Sorry, no, I meant to say do your best Shy Guy. I think actually your Wario impression was closer to Shy Guy.
That's better. I found the Shy Guy.
That's it. That is spot on. Zion, do your best Yoshi impression.
Yoshi!
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
It's all right. I'm glad you gave me Yoshi, because if you told me to do Shy Guy, I don't know what would have came out.
Zion, do your best Shy Guy impression.
That was me struggling to come up with something. I'm gonna submit that even if I get an F on the report. Sorry, boss.
That was an attempt, at least.
When you guys were talking about memories and being, did one of you mention being afraid of something? I can't remember. Or did my brain just travel in that direction?
I'm always afraid of something.
It's really weird. I was going to say, but I don't think I actually said anything about it. Maybe I did. I was going to say that I used to be afraid of the Mario All-Stars intro music, like just the sound effects that would play. Oh, I know. It's laughable. I don't get it. I was afraid of the music in Sonic Adventure, or not the music, but in Sonic Adventure when you do the Tails levels. I was terrified to lose to Sonic. There's all sorts of this is like a video in itself.
We're digging something deep up here, Zion.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it was something about the intro music on the Mario All-Star screen just didn't sit well with me as a kid, and I think it was the sort of like the arpeggio almost. I think I'm using that term right. That would play as you click a game, and then when the game actually boots up on the screen, and I just didn't like it. I don't know why, and. Yeah, but I don't think I don't think I actually said anything about that, Alex, so maybe you were just reading my brain.
Well, I'm sorry I dug that up.
When people talk about fear in Mario, they usually bring up the piano in Mario 64 or the giant eel, but for you, Zion, it's just It's just this
Well,
music.
It's also Baby Mario too. Maybe it's just something about sound effects in games. Certain things
I can
just
get
set
that
me
one.
off.
There's a sense of dread when you lose Baby Mario, and if you don't catch him in time, they take him away.
You're right. Yeah, I couldn't play the game out of the fear of losing Baby Mario, right? And I'm glad to know that I couldn't be alone in that.
I didn't actually mind Yoshi's Island generally. I didn't play the SNES one. I played the GBA one, so I was, a fair bit older at that point, so it didn't really have the same effect. But what I do remember being frightened of was bloody Yoshi's story. If you lost the last Yoshi, because when you die, you get taken to the castle by they're not Magic Koopas, what are they? Toadie! They're called Toadies!
Of course.
What?
Toadies.
Classic.
When the Toadies come and pick you up and they take you to the tower, and it makes it kind of comical because the tower goes whoa, 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 and that's okay. It's not great, but then when you lose your last Yoshi, there's like this very ominous music that happens, and I would always have to turn off the N64 before that happened. I couldn't deal with that as a child. But that's not what I was originally going to say. I was always freaked out by the never-ending staircase. Always.
That music is actually scary. Like the Mario All-Stars music.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember what it's called, but there's basically a technique that it uses where it constantly sounds like it's getting higher and higher pitched, but it isn't. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. But it plays a weird trick on our brains for some reason. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is, and it plays off that. But I think the thing was that as a child, I couldn't deal with the fact it's like, I didn't know how games were made, but in my mind, they followed laws of physics. Like, this is a room. You go into the room has a floor and walls and ceiling, and then to suddenly have a staircase with no end, my child brain was just like, no. Stairs go somewhere. I can't have this. And it was even worse when you turned around and realized that you'd gone nowhere, and it was just like, Oh, my child brain just melted at the prospect.
If anything, that just goes to show how much Mario 64 shaped. Mario's always been something that's introduced us to how we move in games. Like, whether it's the second dimension or the third dimension. When Mario 64 first starts, you're given this small little playground just to roam around in. Do what you want. Nothing has any consequences. You can just learn how to swim, learn how to jump, learn how to run. And there's no music either. It's just immersing you in this open space of the third dimension for the first time. And I remember playing Mario 64 for the first time. It wasn't my first 3D game, not by a long shot. But still, it had that effect on me, where I just felt like this was a special game, even though I didn't really know the history around it. Like, jumping around Bob-on Battlefield and Womp's Fortress, and just getting immersed in all the secrets. Like, I think this game, I hear quite often that it's of its time. I don't agree with that at all. I think Mario 64 feels timeless. Not only is the control scheme still pretty good today, but the core design of exploration is something that hasn't aged a single day.
I think the only thing that has properly aged is the camera. But for its time, my god, that camera was something else.
Yeah. And they made the camera a character too, which is totally Nintendo.
Yes. I think that was to try and give context. I think they said in an interview, it was to give it context because the idea of a camera was completely alien to most gamers. Because 3D games, certainly on console, they were so new at the time, so fresh.
And I won't argue that Mario 64 is a perfect game, because I don't believe that myself. I think the second half, it definitely lags compared to the first. Like, you have the Rainbow Ride section, you've got, I think Tick-Tock Clock is a bit of a hassle, and so is Tall Tall Mountain, because it's an open game, then they introduce these linear levels, and it doesn't quite mesh as well. But the first few levels in Mario 64, I feel are video games at their finest.
I would agree. I think everything's so effortless. And I mean, there are some janky areas, but I think they're only sort of considered janky in hindsight at the time. I think generally things like, like sliding the, when you would slide down Cool Mountain and try and get the snowman his head back, that never really worked, I think, as intended. But that was, at the same time, had anyone ever done that in a game before? And considering that's 1 of 6 stars and all the others work nigh on flawlessly, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, even stuff like getting kicked out of a world to, once you collect a star too, doesn't really feel that bad to me either. Maybe more people feel differently about it in future Mario games, and I know Mario Odyssey was kind of the one that kind of, to my knowledge, was the one that kind of broke that tradition. But yeah, it never feels like I'm being hard reset. It just always felt like it was part of the experience, like, oh, you're celebrating. Now you have to go back and you get to start fresh and collect a new star. You don't have to worry about picking up in that same moment. You get to celebrate your accomplishment a little bit and take a break if you need.
Yeah, it's like a happy accident, really. Mario 64 works like this because of cartridge limitations. Because they can't have that many levels, they try and get the most out of them.
Sure,
but
okay.
It works, though. Like, if Odyssey kicks you out every time, that wouldn't work, because there's so many moons. The flow of constantly going is the point of that game. But in Mario 64, it has to kind of refresh, because certain aspects of the levels change, too.
Sure.
So it's like this little, it's a sandbox. It's a little world that changes every time. And yeah, somehow they made the best of a limitation that would otherwise have made it a very short game.
I just took that, when I was younger, I just took that for granted. That 3D games, 3D platformers, not that I could classify them, properly back then, but those sorts of games where you run around and you collect a big collectible at the end after doing some stuff, then it takes you out and you have to go back in. So when I played Banjo-Kazooie for the first time and I grabbed the first Jiggy and I just stayed in there, I was like, I don't know what's going on. I'm so out of my depth. What's going on here? Why haven't I gone back out again? And so you carry on, you get all the other stuff. But yeah, for the longest time, people will often say, like, the Banjo-Kazooie is technically a better game. And it's like, well, that's fine if you want to have that opinion. In fact, I think I prefer Banjo-Kazooie overall. But come on, Super Mario 64, it was like taking, like, I don't know, so somebody invents, the car and everyone really enjoys the car and everything. And then somebody just says, oh, I'm just going to go to the moon in this rocket I've made out of nowhere. Like, it's an entirely new idea and they just absolutely nailed it.
I can't believe it, especially when I don't know if you guys have looked at this before, if we've talked about it, but Bubsy 3D, when that came out on the PlayStation, that was, I wish I could have lived in the era, like, to have just known what it was like to be excited about that, because I loved Bubsy on Super Nintendo, even though I go back to it now and I'm like, what was wrong with me?
What would a platformer game be without platforms?
Thank you. Okay, so here it is. On the back of Bubsy 3D, I swear that there was like a big, kind of like an Accolade on the front, which is funny because the game's made by Accolade. But on the back here, there's a quote from PS Extreme, and it says, underwater-based levels very reminiscent of Mario 64. And let me tell you, I never made it far enough into the game to get to the underwater-based levels. It's just that bad. And but it really does... It really shows just how, like you said, Alex, how incredible it is that Mario 64 was able to come out first try and just be, I won't say a perfect game, but just, be the joy that it is.
I don't know if this is entirely, whether this is in relation to the quote that you just read out, Xeon, but I do remember that, I've got this memory, I read somewhere that Bubsy 3D, they got into a little bit of hot water because they basically twisted a quote in order to make a review for Bubsy 3D sound better than it was, to the point that it was like considered, I don't know what the legal thing is, but misrepresentation or something like that. I don't know if it was Bubsy 3D, but I'm fairly certain it was. And I remember, and it just, I just had to say that. Sorry.
Talking of Bubsy, Ash Paulson's dad, Rob Paulson, who Ash Paulson of Good Vibes Gaming. He voiced Bubsy in Bubsy 3D.
No way!
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can blame him for that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think he has the voice of Bubsy in the cartoon as well.
Wow, I had no idea. That's broken me right now.
But I think we're touching on something quite grand, though, is there were other 3D platformers before Mario 64. I think Crash Bandicoot predated Mario 64. But a lot of them just kind of flipped a 2D platformer and put it behind the camera. Or kind of, they had the same ideas of what 2D was. But then Mario came along and just redefined it. He didn't just adapt the second dimension rules of a platformer. He made his own. And that's something Mario's always done. Over the years, we've seen games like Mario Galaxy. They came along and they had anti-gravity mechanics, which shouldn't work. In Sonic Adventure 2, they hardly work. But somehow they took a game that doesn't even have camera control and they made it feel fluid and natural. It's crazy all the things Mario has done over the years, whether it is adapting different styles of platforming or playing sports. Like Mario playing golf shouldn't be a thing that works, but it does.
But yeah, it's incredible that they're always able to continue innovating with the Mario series, because there's never, I mean, we've had some Mario games, like Mario Sunshine has always been a divisive title, but for some people, like one of my best friends, it's his favorite game, even before, you know, we got the remake and there were some slightly updated controls and some differences, you know, it's and I think it's because that was the game that he grew up with, you know, and that's another cool thing about it as well, is, you know, we all have our own different stories about Mario, you know, like if my grandpa didn't decide to pull, you know, his Nintendo out of the closet every so often, you know, I might not be the gamer or even the person that I am today. And you know, I think that same thing can be said for all of you guys in a different way, or you know, anybody who's watching this video. It's insane how timeless this little plumber and his family of friends and kooky characters, you know, can be. It's nuts how big of an impact they've all had on our lives.
I'd be really interested to know how different my life would be if my brother had gone with his instinct and suggested that in the competition to win an N64, there were in fact 29 party rings in the image and not 30, as I said. And eventually, I think it was my parents convinced him that no, that was a party ring in the corner. Party rings being a biscuit in the UK, by the way. And he ended up winning the N64.
Wow.
Because this little competition in the Beano, and if he hadn't won the N64, I don't know how different my life would be. Weird thing is, though, the competition was for an N64 and a copy of GoldenEye in a children's comic.
Oh no!
So when my brother won it, they were like, "Hey, you've won! Brilliant! How old are you?" Oh dear. They said you won. In the end, I think they they gave us Star Wars Episode 1 Racing. I say us, it was my brother. He did win, but only because of me. I still hold that to this day. And then my dad bought us GoldenEye because he was just like, bah!
I want to play with guns.
We may not have ever got an N64, I don't think, in that case, because there's no way we could have afforded it. Certainly not me and my brother. My parents probably could have bought us one, but they were generally of the, we've got a Game Boy, why do you need another one? And it's like, oh, you don't understand, mother. Super Mario 64.
Well, as a kid, outside of handhelds, I was mostly just Sega and PlayStation for a long time. I got a PSP in 2005, I think, the year before the Wii. If it weren't for Mario, I'm not sure I would be a Nintendo fan, because Zelda's what got me into the ecosystem. My friend had Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time, and I was so jealous of that I got the N64 and Ocarina of Time myself, and that's kind of what got me to get a Wii as well, with Twilight Princess. And I was very hooked onto Zelda then. But Mario is what pushed things over the edge. Playing Mario 1 and 2 and 3 and 64 through Virtual Console and then Galaxy, then going back to play Sunshine and all these other ones, the possibilities just felt so vast and endless with the back catalogue. Like I went on to play Mario Golf on the N64, and then I played the GBA one, and it was an RPG. Like, it just felt like there were so many genres this guy packed in. And through Mario and Zelda, I played Melee, and that introduced me to Earthbound and F-Zero and all these other franchises. So it all just kind of spiraled on from there. So yeah, if it weren't for Mario, I think I could even be working for Push Square right now.
I think that was very much Nintendo's intention, though, because wasn't Mario's like one of his, I don't want to say original name, but one of the ideas for a name they had was just like Mr. Video Game, and they wanted to put him in as many video games as possible. I think that was back on like the Game Boy, which is why he's in tennis and stuff like that. Or was that on the NES? No, that's on the NES. What am I talking about?
He's in lots of stuff, like Punch-Out, he's the referee. He's like Golf on NES isn't called Mario Golf, but you play as Mario.
Yeah, and I think that was Nintendo's intention, and clearly it's worked. It certainly worked for John, from the sounds of it. It definitely worked for me. Did it work for you, Xeon? Only after you give me your best Luigi impression.
Wahoo, Mario! You're better than me. Wahoo! See, I always thought Mario's original name was going to be John the Plumber, but you proved me wrong. It's interesting, like I said, without Mario, I might not have, because my first video game memory was like bowling on the Atari, but my family liked bowling, so maybe that really stuck with me a lot. And but playing Mario with my grandpa, like we had tons of NES games and lots that didn't make any sense to me as a kid. And but Mario was the thing that it was, anybody could watch it, and they could. It was simple enough, you could pick it up and play. And I think without Mario, I even though I didn't play things like golf, and I eventually played Punch-Out and saw him in the background and was like, oh cool, there he is. But I think it was just the simplicity of that first game that really did it for me. Or even they've always kind of had that feeling. Even somebody who doesn't play video games regularly could potentially go pick up Mario Odyssey. And I think that's always been the most important thing to me, is just how pick up and play friendly the series has been. And I feel like I kind of roundabout answered your question there, but
no, that's good. That's
but
good.
I will say, actually, a fun thing I did want to bring up was, so my grandpa and I can't remember if we had Mario Bros. 3 at this point. We definitely played it, but one time we were at Walmart, and they had on the shelf, I saw a VHS copy of The Wizard, and the only reason that it drew my attention was because Mario is in like the top right corner of the box art, and I remember being like, Grandpa, Mario, look it, he's on there, and Grandpa was probably just like, oh well, whatever, this movie looks dumb. And I begged him to take it home, and we did. And I'm holding my physical copy of The Wizard on VHS right now. And I think because of that first game, Mario kind of seeped into our lives in different ways, and mine in particular, like I've never been the biggest, like Zelda has always had my heart, and so I've never been the biggest Mario fan. But without Mario, I probably wouldn't like Zelda. I probably wouldn't like Final Fantasy. I probably wouldn't like all these other games that I have such big affinities for, and or such an affinity for. And yeah, so it's cool to see how much that little plumber has done over the years.
You touched on a really good point there, Xeon. I often hear the sentiment that Nintendo fans don't try new things, and I feel like Mario has pushed Nintendo fans to try new things. Like, he's been in RPGs for one. There's fighting games like Smash. There's so many different genres he's been in, and if you enjoyed like Mario and Luigi or Paper Mario, then you would probably enjoy Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest. I think that was even the case for me. Like, I never played racing games growing up, and I had no interest in the genre. But then I played Mario Kart 64, and all of a sudden I wanted to play other kart games. And yeah, I mean, it's just been a great entry point to trying different things, and it's something I don't think he gets enough credit for.
I'd agree with that, and it's not something that I think I've properly thought about. But again, just like you, I wasn't really... We had a couple of racing games on the Game Boy. We had Wave Race, which everyone owned. It was, I think, a legal requirement to own a copy of that. And a copy of F1 Race. And that's a really average racing game on the Game Boy. But I never really got into racing games. I tried like Micro Machines around a friend's house, but I never properly got into it until, just the same, Mario Kart 64. And I must admit, I wasn't great at the races, and I didn't really like the races that much. But what I really liked was the battle mode. But it was a way to get me into it, and now I'm actually okay at Mario Kart games and other racing games as a result. And I suppose I've never really thought about it, but yeah, I suppose that was my gateway drug.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, is like I've always told myself, like, I'm not a sports video game player. Like, I'll never play Madden or FIFA or Pro. I don't know. I'm trying to look at the wall of games that I have, but I don't have any sports games on it, so I can't even tell you names. John Elway's Quarterback Club. I don't know. Whatever. But when you put Mario on it, when you put Mario in there, and you add the Toadstool themed levels, or just the Mushroom Kingdom aesthetic to everything, it suddenly is. Maybe it's just because it's recognizable. Maybe it's because it's fun. I'm not really sure, but yeah, like I played a lot of Mario Golf growing up. I remember playing Mario Tennis and Mario Kart at the dentist because they had video game stations there.
The only place to play.
I think that was my first experience.
You didn't even have appointments, you just went there to play the games.
This was one of those like kid-friendly dentists where they're like, we're cool, we don't make kids scream. Come here, you can come here and you can play video games.
I wish adult dentists did that.
Yeah.
They should.
Did you start drilling into your teeth to just play another round of Mario?
I can't say I have any memories of doing it, but maybe. Who knows?
I was never a fan of football. Like, football's a huge sport in the UK, and I was part of a team growing up. I played it. I just couldn't bear watching it or playing games, though. But then Mario Strikers came along, and all of a sudden I was like, is this what normal people feel like when they play football games? Because I was enjoying it.
Yeah, it was the same for me. I've never really... I think I played hang on, it should be on my shelf. What is it? I played FIFA 2004 occasionally with my brother because we picked it up for a song and it was fine. But yeah, Mario Strikers Charged, is that what it's called? I can't remember what it's called over here.
We called it Super Mario Strikers on the GameCube and Mario Strikers Charged Football on the Wii.
It was the Wii one. I got it when I was at uni. And again, I got it for not a lot of money. And it's just so much fun. And I really want another Mario Strikers game, or just the ability to play Mario Strikers over the internet, or, not with a Wii remote.
There's so much potential. There's so much flavor and energy in that series too, and it's something Nintendo shifted away from. I know Imran Khan, who works in the industry, he was saying that apparently Mario Strikers is what turned Nintendo's view of the Mario IP around, like make it more protective, which I guess makes sense. But it's a shame if that's true.
That's disappointing, because it's honestly, like the art style, certainly like the 2D box art and everything like that, it's gorgeous. It's actually gorgeous.
Yeah, it has a lot of flavor in comparison to nowadays the Mario Sports series is starting to get it's starting to inject more of that flavor back into it. But with Mario Tennis on the GameCube and Mario Golf, it didn't really. It did almost kind of seem like they just pulled some Mario elements, slapped them together, and here's golf. I mean, it was still a fun game, but it didn't have that flair of the Strikers series.
Yeah, as you're saying there too, lots of modern Mario sports games have them in outfits now, which is something they never did on GameCube. Mario played golf and tennis in his overalls. But yeah, now they're actually styling them in these new outfits, and that's something I really admire.
Right. And so maybe, Mario Tennis Aces seems like it did really well for Nintendo, and Mario Golf is what is it called again? Super Star Rush Saga
Super Rush,
Golf.
yeah.
Okay, the RPG experience. So if that does well, then maybe we'll actually get another Mario Strikers again, because Next Level, I think, is the company that made that, right? And they did they do Luigi's Mansion, or am I?
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion and Punch-Out.
So I mean, they're still around. It's possible.
Yeah.
They've been acquired, in fact, now, haven't they?
They have, yeah. We should probably wrap this up at some point. So, guys, I have a big question for you, and we'll start with Xeon. What is your favorite Mario game?
Oh my gosh, my favorite.
Any genre. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's a platformer, 2D, 3D, golf, whatever. Anything goes.
This is going to be so I mean, I do have an answer, but I'm also curious. Does Super Smash Bros. Melee count? Is that a Mario game to you guys?
My heart says no. But if you want,
sure,
if you believe
Well,
it.
because I will. So I'll give you a real answer. But so I remember that was the first game I ever got with my GameCube, and because it was like Luigi's Mansion came out, and I don't know. I was probably too scared to play it, honestly. I picked up Super Smash Bros. And Mario has always been sort of the face of that game. So for me, I can see why you would say it isn't one, but in ways it sort of is to me. But yeah, I used to play that same game with my grandpa, and he probably, half the time he probably had no idea what he was doing, but he played with me so much because my brother is 7 or 8 years younger than me, and I should know that, but I don't. And so my grandpa was often the person I played games with. Man, this is how was I not prepared for this question? I think
you can be prepared, but it's so difficult that
I think looking back, it's a lot of the artistic elements of it, the simplicity, and oh my gosh, no. Okay.
I feel like any answer I'm going to give Xeon is something I'll regret the next day. I'll be like, no, I should have said this.
So my true answer, even with all of the fear that the game induced, it put upon me, is probably Yoshi's Island. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. You can't tell me that's not a Mario game. Yes, Yoshi is the main character. It's something about the aesthetic, the music. It forms this perfect package. And like I said, the music terrified me, and so that's a point against the game. But I was a child then, and I have different views now. But yeah, there's just something about the overall charm that I just love, and it feels good to play. I think one thing for me is I've always been a big fan of Donkey Kong Country, just the motion and the movement, the speed that you can run in those games. And Mario is kind of, it feels different, right? It's almost a little more floaty to me, I think, in comparison. And but Yoshi's Island was different, and it's not like it was comparable to Donkey Kong, but there's something about playing cute characters in games that I'm all about as well. And Mario is not. I mean, he's sure. I guess you could describe him as cute, but that's not the first word I would use. But Yoshi is.
There's a vibe to the original Yoshi's Island that no sequel replicates. Like this game has a feeling of dread at times. Like you go into a castle and there's this kind of like moody, almost theme park kind of music that's a bit twisted almost. There's just this style. There's like a darkness to it, kind of above all this cutesy visuals. And it's something that Yoshi's Island DS did not do. Yoshi's New Island did not do. Woolly World, it's definitely my favorite of the sequels, but it still doesn't do it. And I feel like Yoshi's Island it is the epitome of the franchise. It's the best one they've made. And every follow-up, I've enjoyed some of them, but none of them have delivered the same consistency.
Yeah, the Yoshi series is sort of taken like the easy route almost. Like a lot of people will look at the games and think that they're not that they're, I don't want to use the term baby games, but they're fun for the whole family. And the original Yoshi's Island was not necessarily.
It's tough at times.
Yeah. So what about you guys? Who wants to go? I'm gonna ask now. Alex.
Ooh.
What's your favorite? Huh? Are you prepared?
Well, I've been flipping this back and forth in my mind like a horrible pancake. It's a really hard question, frankly. It's a really hard question. And I think I've narrowed it down to 2, though, and I think I'm leaning towards the latter. But first of all, I was going to say Super Mario World. It was the first one I played. It had all these secrets. The gameplay was so refined. Getting the cape was just so magical at the time, and finding all the secrets, and then finding the Star World like 10 years after I played it for the first time and just being blown away by these, considerably harder levels. It was really something extremely special, and I think the fact that I experienced it in that way means that it holds, I think, such a special place in my heart. But I think
we're all just going to be yelling.
I think it's Odyssey. I think it's Odyssey, honestly.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing, but I'll elaborate later.
It's just, Odyssey is it's just so good. It's so good to the point that I kind of forget about it because it is so well realized. Everything is so beautifully just refined to a ludicrous degree. The movement is absolutely perfect in the game, to the point that you can do some stupid stuff that realistically you never ever need to do, like the ground pound jump to throwing Cappy to bouncing off him to wall jumping to throwing Cappy to turning around to diving. You never need to do that stuff in order to actually play the game. I think even, well, certainly to standard completion, maybe not 100%, but certainly like standard completion, you never even have to bother with that ever. But you can do it, and you can take some stupidly over-the-top shortcuts, and Nintendo was aware of it. You can do these crazy things like there's these just big piles of coins hidden there to say, well done, yep, you've mastered the movement, and it's... They knew. They gave us this system that was exploitable without being broken. And they knew what we could do with it, and they acknowledged it, and they made the game around it as well, but at the same time made the game entirely accessible. How the hell did they manage it? I honestly think it's kind of like it's sort of a generational Super Mario 64. Honestly, I really think it is.
Yeah, we're in the Mario cycle right now, where a lot of people are viewing this game on a negative side. And I think when the next game comes along, we're going to look back at Odyssey and be like, whoa, look at everything this game did. And it took me until 3D All-Stars to realize that this is my favorite Mario. Because I played through Mario 64 again, and Sunshine, and Galaxy, and I started to see the shortcomings in those games. Like 64, as I mentioned earlier, I think the upper floor of the castle, it definitely dips. It dips in quality. Sunshine has always been a bit iffy for me. Like there's parts I enjoy, but as a whole, I'm not a big fan. Galaxy, I've always loved Galaxy, but I feel like Odyssey just does something different. People complain about too many moons in this game. I don't think that's really the point of what this game tries to be. It's a game where you can go off in any direction and you can achieve something. Moons duplicate because they need to catch your eye. You need to be able to see something in the distance and be like, yes, I knew that was there, and then you get rewarded for it. I just think all these levels are designed masterfully, and it's pulled off in a way that very few other developers possibly could. And it's even a game that my partner, who doesn't generally play games very often, 100%ed. She's played, I think, Pokemon Snap in her time. She's played a few other Marios, like 3D World, but she's only really dipped her toe in Nintendo games. But she's played Odyssey for 100 hours and has done everything, which kind of says like how accessible this game is too. Like some of these jumps look crazy, but you don't have to do them. Like Alex said, you can beat the game just fine without doing all these complex moves. So for me, I think Odyssey is just one of the purest video games I've ever played.
I can't argue with that because it also reaffirms my point.
Well said, guys. Well said.
Okay, well, I guess we can't fit everything from the Mario series into one chat because that would take forever. We're missing out so much. We've barely talked about Sunshine or Galaxy or some of the bigger 3D games like 3D World and 3D Land because there's just way too much to talk about. So we'll let you do that in the comments below. And be sure to throw your cap onto the subscribe button and capture it, and then you can be the subscribe button and lure others to press you. And we'll see you next time. Woohoo!
Wahoo!